Now we have a fully functional endpoint for creating users, right? So I want to draw your mind. I want to draw your mind to something, right? You see this depend DB, for example, it was we created it in the user function, right? In the user endpoint. So this is the user endpoint, and then is user route. Yes, user route. Sorry, and then this is the function that we use to get the DB all the time. And then this particular DB is also going to be used by almost any particular routes that we'll be creating. For example, the transaction also we will have to go and import it from there to use it, right? That's something that's a function that can be used by as many routes that we're creating. A lot of routes you might be proceeding with a lot of modules and then having a lot of routes, and then all of them will be using that particular one function, and every time will be importing from one of the routes. So the appropriate way is not functions that can be used by almost all the routes. Functions that can be used by almost all the routes need not to be in one of the routes. We need to group them in a different file so that whenever we need them we can call them into um the particular routes that will need it. Okay, so it's for that matter we cannot it's not appropriate. We need to reorganize some of the functions in order to make sure that the things are well organized. So what we are going to do is that we need to go to, you see we have app, right? Our app, we open it up, right? If you open it up you have routes. That's where our things is. Yes, we have a route. This py cache comes automatically for some cache, right? And then this file where we have database model and things. So aside the database DB models, main.py and PD models, right? We need to get out of the route, and then at this level we need to add another file called, no, this is going to be inside the route. So let's not be inside the route. Let's make sure that we click the app itself, open it up, close it, open it up. We are in the app. Then we can create a new file called operations.py. So operations.py, this one will contain all the operations or functions that will be used by almost every function. So this function, a function like this, right? A function like this will be used by almost all. So I'm going to cut it, right? And I'm taking it and sending it to the operations.py. I'm pasting it here. Okay, see, I'm pasting it here, but we don't have session local. So what is session local? Session local is from database. So from database, so let's do the proper thing. From app.database import session local, right? Okay, so yeah, that's what it's using. So the operations.py will be using that. And then when we go to the user model now, so for the get db we need to go to call it from operations. So you say from app.operations import get db. If we do it like that, then we are rightfully importing it. If you go to transaction.py, right, this one we are getting is from here. So we can just do from app.operations, we are importing get db, so that whenever they need it then they will just use it from the operations. So all the operations are there. So it's inside the operations that will be putting functions that will be unique for all of them, but those that are specific to a particular route, then we just keep them there. So that's not all. Let's go and fetch another thing from there. So I want you to notice that there is something that we used to repeat. We have been repeating all this while, this particular side of the function. So we used to get the user by email, get user by id, especially the id was many times. For example, we want to get user by id itself, we go and then we implement this function where I do this query in the database and do all this plenty stuff. The same way, if we want to go to this get user by email, right, this by email, but then this get I all users. Then if you want to update, so whenever we want to update we need to ensure that we get the user before we continue, right? That's what's happening. So even when you go to another endpoint, that's update email, we usually use the id to check if the user exists. Every time that is happening we are going and then we are checking if the user exists. So we are rewriting this line of code as many times as we have, right? So this one too, we want to delete to, we are checking if the ID exists. So that's a repeated thing. So we can just put that together into a simple function, right? So I'm going to copy this, right? Let me go and prepare the function. I'm going to operations. Inside the operations, we are going to give a comment here saying that function to fetch the user by his or her ID. So what we'll do is I will create a function def fetch underscore user by ID, right? So I'm calling it like that. So what are we returning? I'm going to return user, but then you need to receive some stuff first. So what are we going to receive? We are going to receive the ID of the user, right? Then this one is going to be UUID, but UUID is not inside here. The ID that will be passing to this particular thing should be a UUID. And then we are going to also pass a database, and that database, um so I'm going to call it data dbase, right, for database, so that it will not be the same as db. So dbase for database, and then the type will be a session. It's going to be a session type. That's what's going to happen. We are not doing depends here. The depends need to be done before it is passed here. But then let's go and then import the necessary things. So we need to import session. Yeah, UUID first from SQL Alchemy, right? Import UUID, right? So UUID is sorted from SQL Alchemy .orm import session. Yes, so session is also sorted. So now we are going to use the user ID, right? So there, let me call it db underscore user. That's what we'll call it out. So first, what do? We do db. Whenever we take the user, db user will be equal to um dbase dot query, right? Dot or we are going to query user, the user model, right? Dot filter. Remember how you used to do that, right? User dot id is equal to id that the user is bringing dot first. So this is what we'll be doing. This is the function. This is what the function will be doing, right? But then we don't have the user model imported. User model imported. So we need to go to from app dot db models import user. So we are importing that model here so that this particular thing can use it. If db or user is none, we've done this many times, right? we are going to we are going to raise an exception. We are going to raise an http exception, but http exception is not imported here, so I'm going to import it. We say from FastAPI import http exception, right? And I'm going to import status as well. So these guys are what we use to raise exception. So we're going to call it http exception status code. If it's not found, then we call status dot 404 not found, and then detail. The detail is user. There is no user with the provided ID. So, right, there's no user like that provided ID. That was raise an exception. If if the user exists, then this one will just proceed. But if it's not, this is going to raise an exception and the code will end. The code will end. But if the user exists, then we just return that user ID to the appropriate end front end, right? So get user by ID. So we can do the same thing to get user by email as well, right? Copy. I'm going to copy the same thing. I'm pasting it here, but get user by email here. So email, so there is not going to be ID here again. We're going to pass the email to this, and then the email is going to be email str, right? But we need to import it from Pydantic. So from Pydantic, import email str, right? That's what the email will do. And then this one, we are not comparing ID, but we'll be comparing dot email to the provided email that will be done. So this is the function that will check. So there's no existing user with the provided email, right? Okay, so this is good for um email, and this is going to be good for if you want to get user by ID. So you go to user model, right? You go to the user model. So we are always checking this, right? So this one is for ID, so I'm not going to use that. We are going to do um we are going to clear this, right? And call first from operations. Where is it? From operations, we have another function to import: fetch user by email, fetch user by ID. So we import the two functions. So let's go wherever we have something like that. We so there we are comparing email here, right? Post login user. So we are using the email, right? So we are using the email first over here. So I'll just say fetch user by email here. So here we'll pass email equals to user dot email, right? Then dbase is equal to db. Basically that's what we are going to do. That's what we get. And what other thing are we doing? Yeah, this is okay. That's all, right? Then where is this one? This is to get user by ID, right? So get user by ID is basically going to be that fetch user by ID. So we have ID comma ID is equal to the ID that is here, and then dbase is equal to dbase db. Yeah, it's going to be db. So let me see. Here it was email, right? So here is db. Let's look at this point too. This one is email again over here. So we call it fetch user by email. So we use email equals to email provided, and then dbase is equal to db. Okay. What where else can we go to? This one by ID, right? So we are going to do the same thing. Fetch user by ID. So ID is equal to user dot ID here, comma dbase is equal to dbase is equal to db. Okay. um yeah, so this one is the else. I remove the if, so this one will take over like this, right? Let's go to the next one by ID. ID. So it's going to be fetch user by ID again. So basically almost everything is user.id, comma fetch dbase is equal to db database session, and then there is some elif that we need to, because we remove the if statement. So this one too by ID, right? I think it's almost the same as this guy, so I'll just copy this guy and paste it wherever it is needed. Okay, do we need it here? It's by ID, so we need it here. Okay, fine. Do we need this? Is by ID as well. Okay, this one is ID, so yes, ID. For that matter, we just provide the ID. Okay, yeah, so let's go to transactions as well. So when we were trying to create a transaction, we were trying to make sure to see if the user exists first, right? So we are going to do that and say fetch user by ID, but it's not here, right? So we need to, from operations, fetch user by ID, right? We need that function here. So we say fetch by ID. So we need to pass the ID equals to transaction dot owner ID, right? Comma dbase is equal to db. Yeah, basically that's what happens. Um, but we are not using that now. This is going to be checking if there is an exception. If there's an exception, right, you're going to return that user thing, then we are okay, right? That we just put it there to check. If not, it will raise an exception, then we are okay, good to go. Okay, so you see how clean is now, right? We have one function, the function written in operations, right? It is written in operations here. So wherever we needed it, we just call them over there, pass the right argument, and everything will run. Will this thing work? Let's now, that's not all as well. That's not all I want to also show. I want to also show that you see in the tags, right? We let me put something here. Um, we have some arguments, right? That this particular thing can take the 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 prefix. So you need to enter something like prefix. So what does prefix do? I'll show you in a moment. Prefix equals to, it's a tag, right? It's a tag. I'm going to do transactions, right? So let me add. Yeah, so this is a prefix. It means that when you're on this route, right, you'll be seeing transactions before you add the name of this thing to it, right? There's a prefix thing, so these are things going to be related to all transactions. So when you are on the transaction route, you'll be seeing in the path you'll be seeing transactions slash the appropriate this thing that will be following. First, we're just having it, but then we need to differentiate it so that we have something that's related to use. So if you go to the users as well, we can add a prefix here, right? We can add prefix here and say users, right? If you do users, then you see the path. Let's show it in the front, and let me run my UV code. Complete, everything is complete. Let me open it up, refresh the page. Yeah, so you can see that everything, the prefix for all of them is, you see they are users slash sign up. This is users slash login, users dot get user by ID. That's what I mean by the prefix. This is transaction, so everything related to transaction. This is transaction slash create transaction, right? You see how clear it is. Okay, let's do some functions again to see if those things that we claim that we have cleared are working, right? So here we have a wrong ID, right? We have a wrong ID. Let's execute that and see what will happen. They say there is no user with the provided ID. There is no user with the provided ID. So we went to the transactions, create transaction. So let's go to that place. In there, in there, what happened was transactions, right? What happened was that when we reach this transaction, this thing with a wrong ID, the thing moved from here. So this is where the error came from. This went to enter the, this line was running. So when this one line ran, it called us to the operations functions to get user by ID. So it was running this thing. When you run this thing, it's provided a response from this side. This was the detail that was showing, right? So the thing is actually working when we organize the functions in that way. So we have a prefix also added to make the things clear, so that when you are sharing the path, they know that okay, slash transaction slash create transaction. So if, for example, this is clear, more clear, we have users slash sign up, users does login, users slash get user by ID, users. So everything concerning the users, they have the prefix for that, right? So if you have like something like sign up. So what if another case you say this is users login, but what if you have specific things like even the users, you have something like admins and customers. So if it's customers sign up, customers login, so you can have admin sign up, admin login. Like it depends on what you the system that you are building. So those are how prefixes will help you to know that okay, all these actions are going to be are going to be related to users, right? And then all these actions are going to be related to transactions. So they will all have this prefix to make it more clear, right? And all the functions will be running very well. Okay, so someone might be thinking, oh, why don't we try to log in and see someone by email? So let me try this thing out. So I remember we have something like carriage, right? So carriage at gmail.com, and then the password, I don't know whether it's 12345 6. I remember we do something like that. Let me execute this, and it returned very well, right? Carriage returned very well. Let me do a mistake inside, right? I've done a mistake inside. Let me execute this. There's no user with the provided email. So that's where are we? This is users login, right? Let's go to the functions. You can see that when you go to the user side login, this is the login route. You can see that this is the one that was running, the email one. So it went, the email one sends us to the operations, and inside the operation, the email one is providing this response from here. So organizing this thing, you see how it is clear. It is allowing the code to actually run the thing more modular. Okay, yes. So let's go to the yeah. So that's what we have done. So the thing is more organized now, clearer. It's clearer now. So some of the functions that you know that will be running globally, right? We'll put all of them the operations, inside the operations, right? So that all the functions will be using them. But those that are specific to a particular route, we'll keep all of them inside, right? Yeah. See you in another session.